organisms and eukaryotic organisms, and are made of cells that are distinguishable from each other. I'd indicated that a cell is a little bit of the universe that's surrounded by a boundary or a membrane. But inside there, inside of this is the DNA, which functions as the genetic material. It's the blueprint for everything that that cell is going to make and be able to do. Ultimately, everything's encoded there. And in a prokaryotic cell, the DNA is free within this membrane. A eukaryotic cell also has a membrane. But the DNA inside is inside another membrane compartment known as the nucleus. And this is the DNA. These prokaryotic cells tend to be of the order of a micrometer in length, and eukaryotic cells are usually larger, can be 10 to 100 micrometers. There's quite a bit of variation, but that gives you at least some sense of the range. Now, for years, when I did a diagram like this, I wanted to somehow be able to show you that these cells were more interesting than just looks on the board. So here are a couple of pictures just to try and do that. This shows a picture of E. coli swimming along, and it's the way this image is being taken lets you see what are called flagella, but which are basically the propellers that E. coli have that let it swim through the water. These are long structures made of proteins that are several times the body length of the bacterium, and there's a molecular motor embedded in the bacterium that whirls around at about somewhere between 10 and 100,000 RPM, and that's what drives the bacterial forward. So that was a prokaryotic cell. Here's a paramecium. This is a single-celled eukaryotic organism, and as you can see here, it's capable of movement as well. In this case, it has cilia along the outside that allow it to move. Here's an interesting one. I don't know if any of you could guess what these were. These were cells from the skin of a mouse. They're on a surface, agar surface, and as you can see, they too can move. There are a couple of things that are important about this. I got this slide from Linda Griffith, who's in the biological engineering department. At the time I got it for, I think it was in chemical engineering. It was several years ago when I got this. And what was important about this, apart from it being a very nice little movie showing you a mammalian cell moving around, was that I got it, I saw Linda show this during one of her research seminars. So here is an engineer at MIT who was showing this picture as part of her research talk. And I think those of you who are going on to engineering, you may be surprised at the extent to which you need to know about biology as you go through your professional careers. Okay. So one of the great discoveries that has happened over the last few years that came out of our ability to look at DNA and RNA was the discovery that the forms of life that are prokaryotic actually split into two distinct kingdoms that are very, very different. The archaea and the bacteria. And just to give you a sense of the diversity of life, I'll just mention a couple of these. These archaea look like bacteria, but they're as diverged from the bacteria as they are from the eukaryotes. So there were sort of three really major kingdoms of life. And the archaea, many of them can live in specialized environments. For example, Sulfolobus can live at about 90 degrees centigrade and a pH of somewhere between 1 and 2. And so if you see something like a hot springs, there are organisms such as this that are able to grow in that environment. Or there are halophiles, salt-loving archaea that can grow, for example, in 4 molar sodium chloride. And if you've, for example, ever flown into San Francisco Airport coming up from the south over San Jose, you've seen things that look sort of like these pictures where seawater is being evaporated down to collect the salt, and you'll see they're colored, and the reason they're colored is that these halobacteria are bacteria that are able to use light as an energy source, and they make pigments that absorb the light, and that's why these salt areas get colored. A third example would be methanogens. These are organisms that produce methane. If you've walked into a lake and stepped on the bottom and seen little bubbles come up, those are little bubbles of methane. Or another place where you find methanogens are inside of cows. Now, some of you may not know that a cow is more or less a walking anaerobic fermenter here. If we have an anatomically correct picture of a cow, the inside of the cow, there's a large chamber known as the rumen, where there's no oxygen, and there's a culture of microorganisms there that includes methanogens, and it's this combination of microorganisms that enable cows to eat grass that we can't manage to get energy from, and as a byproduct of this specialized type of metabolism produces methane, and a cow burps something of the order of 400 liters a day of methane. Okay, so one last thing then, that's just to kind of pull this all together, is that these organelles that I mentioned, which are also membrane compartments that are found in eukaryotic cells, and either are the mitochondria or chloroplast, there's pretty strong evidence at this point that these arose from bacteria that were things that you're more familiar with, things like E. coli or Streptococcus that causes strep throat, or the lactic acid bacteria that cause the milk to turn into yogurt, which some of you probably had for lunch today. That these organelles, the mitochondria and the chloroplasts, were derived from a particular type of bacteria that probably first got transiently associated with developing eukaryotic cells sometime back in evolution, and eventually became captured and became a permanent part of the eukaryotic cell. The mitochondrion is thought to have derived from something that looks like today's present-day rhizobia, which we'll talk about, that form an intracellular infection of plants, or rickettsia, which is a chronic intracellular pathogen. The mitochondria look as though they came from something related to that. The chloroplasts look as though they came from a bacterium that was able to carry out photosynthesis, which we'll also be talking about. So I want to close by giving you just a quick little snapshot of evolution, because I'm hoping this will maybe make some of the things that we talk about in this course clearer. So what we're going to do